For people who don't know you, who are you and why should we listen to you?
It's a good question, David. So I've been a child psychologist for the last 17 years. I have a huge interest in developmental psychology, and I feel I've got a little bit more of a grasp of what I'm talking about when it comes to child behavior in particular.
Mm-hmm. So I suppose one question that all parents would ask, why do my child need a psychologist?
So often a child will need a psychologist if you're starting to see some behaviors that are affecting their functioning within a family setting or within a school setting or friendship setting. And most kids have these difficulties, but when it becomes a clinical concern is when they start to really struggle with being part of the family or really struggle having friendships.
Okay. So when you say struggling having friendship, is it struggling to make friends or is it... What were the typical cases that you see where children are finding it difficult to make new friends?
Yeah, so it would be either finding it difficult to make new friends or finding it difficult to maintain friendships that they have. So they might give up easily or be quite hard on the friendship in terms of if they disappoint me once, that's it, cut them off.
And where does that come from? Where does it stem from?
Yeah, so look, it's a combination of, child's personality and also obviously parenting that they have received.
Now, when it comes to parenting, let's say for children, it's hard to say because I find it easy to make new friends I found it easy to make new friends when I was a kid. My first boy, he's also okay with making new friends as well. Mm-hmm. But what I'm trying to figure out is what sort of pattern that parenting would have on children to make it harder for them to make new friends. Is it because father? Well, I read somewhere or I saw it somewhere that father who are always having outbursts in front of them to sort of press their confidence. That was another question actually.
Yeah.
How do you build confidence in children?
Absolutely. So if I relate it to the friendship aspect, parenting part comes into it is when they come home from school and they say they had a trouble with a particular friend. The way you respond to that will shape the way they will respond to that. So what I mean by that is if you say, oh, that doesn't sound too good. How did you feel about that? And what did you say? And what did the other person say? And what would you like to happen? Aiming to repair a friendship that is good enough rather than kind of going, oh, if someone makes you feel bad, then they're not a good friend.
How do you get a story out of them? Because every single time we go, how was school? They go, good.
What's good about it? What was good about it? Yeah.
Well, is there any other questions that we would be able to ask them to get them?
Who did you play with today? Was there a time today that made you quite upset? What happened? Often after school, kids really don't want to talk about school.
Yes, that's what I found as well. And so is there any tips and tricks on how to get stories out of them? There's no particular tricks and tips apart from allowing them to talk when they're ready. What I mean by that, often kids will start telling you what happened in the day just before bedtime or during bedtime, rather than straight after school when they feel like that need to decompress and just relax and not put on a face, so to speak, of being social and friendly because they're with mum and dad. So often it's, when they start to kind of catch up with the day at nighttime, they will be telling you what has happened in their day. And what worries them, because at nighttime that's the time when they start to kind of overthink things in social interactions or things that happen at school, if they got in trouble or not. And that's when it will come out. How early in childhood do you see this type of behavior, like overthinking at night?
Oh God, that's a really good question. It happens as early as 4, to be honest.
As early as?
As 4 years old.
4 years old?
Yeah. They will be wanting to say one more thing and one more thing and one more thing. And that could be delaying bedtime, but it could also be I'm just kind of thinking about all these things and I don't know how to make sense of it.
So do we have a wrong perception then as parents? Because it seems like, oh, my children are carefree, they don't have any worries, they're just happy, dandy, not telling me any stories, but they do keep it in their mind?
Yeah, so it really depends. Like, children might display this level of kind of confidence of nothing is going on, but their behavior will tell you if they're struggling with something. So a refusal to go to school or refusal to go to parties or, kids' parties, refusal to leave the house. The behavior will tell you a lot more around what worries them, even if they don't want to talk about it, for example.
Okay. What are the telltale signs?
Okay. Depends on the child's personality. So can you give me an example of something that, maybe one of your kids...
Let's say, okay, when you said a change of behavior when they need to go to school or go to a party, what sort of change of behavior? Like they reluctant to go?
They're reluctant. They start to ask all these sort of questions right before you leave. So who's going to be there and how long are we going to stay? And, what if nobody wants to play with me? And what if someone is mean to me? Things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a sign that there's some level of social anxiety that they're dealing with and they don't know what to do with it.
That's very interesting. Another side of the coin is how can you tell when a child is lying to you?
I used to tell my son that his eyes turn red when he lies to me.
This is what I told my son as well. I said to him, when you lie to me, your hair stand up on the end.
That's a good one. Because it's like, Daddy, this happened. No, I mean... that's a really good question. If they're quite short with answers, if they're quite, kind of shutting it down, the conversation, it's not about maybe not even lying, but just quite reluctant to share. Mm-hmm. So again, so when you say lying, is it something happens and they lie about their part, or they?
I don't know. So this is a struggle. That we face is that he would often lie about, have you brushed your teeth, for example, or stuff like that.
Normal, expected.
Expected.
And a good sign of intelligence.
Because my fear as a father is that he will get so comfortable lying. He would, started lying about other things as well, or starting hiding about other things or not telling us their problems. I know that we can't really control them, but how do we better manage them?
Absolutely. So you manage your reactions to lying. So what I mean by that is if they lie and they get in trouble, of course they're going to lie more because they don't want to get in trouble. So what does it mean to you if your son or daughter, is it your son?
Son.
Lies to you?
That's a very good question. It means that there might be a barrier or something that's stopping them from telling me a story.
Yeah. But in terms of what does it mean for you if he lies to you, like that he's going to be a bad person or he's going to... No. He's disrespecting you in some way?
No, I believe it's got nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
But what I fear is... that when he starts lying and he lies often, it becomes a habit.
Right.
And he will be a untrustworthy person in the future.
That's a good one. Mm-hmm. That's what it means to you. He will be an untrustworthy person in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the part where I would like you to explore with your kid, depending on how old they are. So, but when you lie, or when you don't tell the truth, what happens if you do tell the truth? Can people believe you? And how would they know to what, when you're not telling the truth, when you're telling the truth, Sometimes it's that part where people are like reluctant to trust what you say is true because in the past it was not true.
Mm-hmm. So if I were to explain it to my 7-year-old, the impact of lying what could I say to him to make him realize that lying is a bad thing?
Yeah, so I would start off with exploring what's the benefit of lying for him. Why does he lie? To be liked? For people to literally get off him with expectations. It's like, yeah, I did it. I brushed my teeth. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
So benefits of lying, like people leave me alone, so I can do whatever I want to do if I just tell them that I've done what they want me to do.
Mm-hmm.
So kids sometimes say parents ask for a lot of things. So I just kind of say I did it, so I can get out of it.
It's just overwhelming to them.
Expectations are overwhelming. Exactly.
Okay.
So how about we agree on what's a must and what's something that we can negotiate, and that way you can tell me the truth if you did it, or not.
Right. Okay. But that's when they could understand what's a must and what we can negotiate already.
Absolutely. If the kids feel like the rules are too much, they'll bend them.
Right. Okay.
They'll bend them. So you kind of have to meet the need, so to speak.
The needs?
The need for him to be independent on his own terms. So I want to make a decision, and you can say things like, definitely you can make a decision whether you want to go to bed before brushing teeth or after, but brushing teeth is a non-negotiable.
Now,
when you want to do it is up to you.
Yeah. Well, a lot of parents would disagree with this type of parenting, especially my parents or their generation. It's called soft parenting. You give them the freedom to do this. How do you meet in the middle? Like, as in, how do you stay firm but still make sure that they understand this is their responsibility?
Yeah, I'm not a soft parent by nature. I'm an Eastern European background. It's not natural to me in any way. So I honestly, soft parenting is quite anxiety provoking for kids. What I mean by that is if you allow kids to do what they want, they don't know where the boundaries are. It's just not, it's not good for kids.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a difference between strict or firm, but warm.
Strict, firm, and warm.
And warm.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is you can impose boundaries, but you don't have to be, scary about it.
Mm.
Brush your teeth or else is different to, I need you to brush your teeth. If you don't, I will do it for you because it's important.
Okay. Yeah.
And kids don't like when independence is taken away from them.
100%.
Yeah.
But if they don't do it right, we've got to jump in.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about boredom in kids, especially in these day and age. Every kid's got an iPad or an iPhone. I like driving out every Sunday. Just to clear my head, and it's normally an hour or 2 hour drive. They get bored. How do we, with reducing screen time, how do we manage that?
I don't think you're meeting the kids' boredom need there. I think you're meeting your own need of peace and quiet.
Yes.
And similarly, if you go to a restaurant, you're not kind of keeping them entertained. You just want to have a peaceful meal.
That's true. Very true.
So what needs to happen instead of putting the emphasis on kids, you need to work on your own tolerance of bickering in the background. Or questions, or are we there yet, or whatever it is. So you need to develop your own tolerance threshold for that happening at the back while you're driving.
I've actually got a very high tolerance or threshold for a lot of questionings because I do answer questions on autopilot.
Yeah,
and I love that.
Perfect.
My wife doesn't.
Some parents find it stressful, and look, if you're on your own, if you're the only parent driving and you have kids at the back, bickering, it's a safety issue. So sometimes parents do give an iPad because, they want to have a safe trip. But boredom is part of life.
Really, like, you know, and we have taken that away. You know, how many times, you know, you're walking down the street and you see someone looking on their phone, just scrolling through Instagram or something because they're bored, because they're coming from the bus stop home.
Mm-hmm.
And why, you know...
It's a quick dopamine.
Yeah, it's just, I'm bored. I'll sort it out for myself. I'll make sure that I'm not bored anymore by scrolling.
But I read somewhere that boredom is a good thing. It's it encourages creativity.
Yeah, yeah. And most importantly, it teaches the child that it's a normal part of life. So boredom is there for a good reason. It is good for creativity, but it's also a normal part of life. And you cannot just get everything you want immediately.
Look, Levi, my son, who's 7 years old, he is packed with activities from Monday to Friday.
Right.
All activities after school. No, sorry, Monday to Saturday. Saturday is his busiest day. Even with days that he has no extracurricular, he would ask, "What can I do? Can you put me in somewhere? Can you put me in something?" Is that normal, or is that induced by his anxiety or boredom?
That's a really good question. I wouldn't have a clue until I speak to Levi myself. But to me, it sounds like he's a quite ambitious kid, and that's good. He wants to learn new skills. He wants to spend his time, you know, doing things. That to me is not a problem. It's a problem if parents put all these activities and kids are like, oh yeah, this and this and this. I don't feel like it, but I have to go.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I again.
So as long as they're not, they don't feel forced.
Yeah.
It's a healthy thing.
Yeah. I don't. If they want to spend their time with learning a new activity, especially if it's a social activity, especially if it's team sport, I think that's fantastic.
But when it comes to social activities, I reckon he finds it more comfortable doing it with the friends that he's made at school, rather than you know, this type of group. And okay, shyness is another thing as well.
Yeah.
How do you get kids to overcome shyness or to become more socially, you know, I don't know the term.
Yeah, most socially comfortable, socially,
yes.
yeah. Look, it's a personality thing, David. I think a lot of the times, you know, we say extrovert, introvert, you know, a lot of the times we all are born with particular emotions about social interactions, but we have a variety of skills, so to speak. So, you know, a child might not feel particularly skilled in how to handle breaking conversation, or how to handle competitiveness, how to handle someone being controlling or them being controlling. It's that sort of skill. How do I navigate friendships with different personalities? Shyness is not a bad thing. Shyness tells me I'm here kind of figuring out who you guys are before I show you who I am. So it could be, again, I'm guessing here because I don't know your kid, it could be about judgment. I'll be judged as stupid if I say something silly. I'll be judged as whatever, you know, again, conversations with Levi.
So this is really one thing that we don't realize, is that they have all these internal thoughts.
Yeah.
That they're not sounding it to us. He's a very chatty boy. He asks me everything. He would sound whatever he's thinking of. But if what you're saying is applicable to most children, or even every children, every child, that they have their internal thoughts, they're battling their own internal thoughts as well. How do we help them to be able to extrapolate that?
Absolutely. Curiosity.
Like, how do you ask the question? Even start to ask the question.
So, let's take Levi, for example, and you observe him socially, you know. He's a chatty boy, but not chatty in a new environment, you know, not chatty with a new group or whatever it is. At the end, on the drive home, I would say, buddy, I noticed that you didn't say much while you were in a group. Were you worried about saying something? No, I was fine. Did you feel comfortable? How do you know that you felt comfortable?
Mm-hmm.
What did you notice? I don't know. They would say, okay, was your heart racing? You know, were you thinking what you're going to say next? Were you thinking when the breaking conversation is? So curiously explore their own thinking style in that particular social situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that,
helping them articulate as well.
yeah, that's how they get to know themselves, really, by kind of expressing to you what they were thinking in that moment, if they can.
Yeah.
And if not, it's a good set of questions to go into the next social situation, kind of go, my dad saw me not talking a lot. Maybe I'll put it more effort now, or something like that.
Yeah, so instead of making assumptions or putting a label on what he was doing, you ask curious questions.
You ask curious questions, but the way you ask, again, it has to be done in a very non-judgmental way. Very gentle in terms of I want the curiosity to be shown in your voice.
Mm-hmm.
So again, like I was saying, buddy, I noticed. It's a really good phrase. I noticed you did this.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're just observing the behavior, and then say what you've observed and then check in with how they felt about it.
Yeah. Now, siblings with short age gap versus a long age gap.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any difference in their upbringing, in the common theme that you have seen?
Yes, absolutely. Siblings that are closer in age want to kill each other on a daily basis. And siblings that are, from my observation, that are, there's the bigger age gap. There's a level of closeness that comes without competition. What I mean by that is if there's 5 or more years difference, there's not a lot of competition for parental attention, for example. The first sibling, if there's 2, had a lot of one-on-one attention, in the early years. And then this new sibling came along, made things more exciting. Of course, there's going to be competition in terms of, who got what, and, that's normal in every family, but it's less than siblings that are closer in age. So, for example, with me and my brother, there's 9 years difference, and I've always been closer to him than my sister. Then there's 3 years difference.
Yeah, right. Okay.
There was always an older sibling would often look out for the younger sibling, almost like that sort of parent/sibling figure. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing to see, the closeness without much competition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I thought if the age gap is way, over 5 years of difference, the conversation would be very, very different. Or they don't have a common interest.
Absolutely.
Anymore.
But that's not a bad thing. That, in terms of, they can get closer in different ways. So an older sibling gets to explore their caretaking abilities with the younger sibling if they want to, or that sort of leadership ability with the younger sibling, while the younger sibling allows them to lead and kind of relates to someone who's not an adult, but not necessarily a young child either. So there's an element of looking up to someone, admiring someone who's closer to age than your parents. So I think it's actually quite a beautiful thing to see in families when there's 5 years plus age difference.
I grew up in a Asian household, obviously, with lots of expectation.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to expectation to children, are expectations a good thing, or is it encouraging to them, or do you leave them free roam? Which do you think is better?
Look, I have. My brother is married to a Chinese girl. I'm really close to that part of culture, in terms of getting to see firsthand how they parent. There's a lot of closeness in Asian families, but it's done in a really practical way. Parents are there for their kids, like wholeheartedly, practically. Where it lacks a little bit, from my perspective, is the warmth factor.
The warmth, yep.
It's that sort of leadership without the warmth leads to lack of connection, so to speak.
because they know, these kids know parents will do everything for me, but hear me out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's really hard because culturally you're like that, you know, and culture does impact the way we parent significantly.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to keep the balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really, really hard to keep a balance, but it's the warmth, I think, that sometimes makes a huge difference, how accepted a child feels.
So you've got to be firm when you need to be and show them or shower them with love.
Yeah.
In the end of the day.
So it's the warmth. When I say warmth, I mean validation. So again, you can still say no to your child and accept the emotion. Validate how they're feeling, but still don't give in.
How do you validate their feelings?
That's a good question. So I understand you feel frustrated. You know, I would be too. But we can't have iPad after 8. That's the rule in this family. Or whatever it is.
The question that I ask Levi the most is, how do you feel about that?
Mm-hmm.
Are you proud of yourself?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to encourage him to validate himself.
Yeah.
To be able to understand how he's feeling, what he's been through. And most of the time, this is another thing that I notice from him as well, is he's very self-critical. Oh,
right.
I feel I could do better. I was like, why is that? Did you give it your best? He goes, yeah, but I feel like I could do better. I put no pressure on him. And I keep wondering, where does that come from?
So if a child, like, again, personality, you know, was he always like that, quite hard on himself? To me, that speaks around the skill of not being able to deal with disappointment.
Disappointment in himself?
Yeah, like, how do I deal with this sense of disappointment that I could do better? What does better look like? And if I did do that better, what does that mean about me, that I am perfect?
What does that mean about me? That's a very good question that I've never asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you model the things are good enough, like, to him? How do I model, like, the things are good enough? Like, how do you model how you deal with disappointment?
That's a very good question. The answer to that is I never do. I always put it back to him because in my opinion, he should be the one setting a standard for himself. And he doesn't need to be better than anyone else. He just needs to be better than himself, his previous self. Mm-hmm. Does that even...
I think kids need a lot of help with that. What I mean by that is they kind of look to you in terms of, did I meet the expectation, Dad? Did I does that mean?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's really hard for them, especially at that age, to figure out where the boundary is. We put that boundary, really. You know, by, again, going back to, you know, if you did score 90 instead of 80 or whatever it is, what does it mean? Like, does it mean that you're smarter? Does it mean that you know, like, what does it mean? That you are very, very good? And why is that a good thing? Like, what for you? Like, what?
I'm going to use that very often. What does that mean to you?
Yeah.
I love that. Jelena, why child psychology?
Wow. Okay. So I always knew I wanted to do it. I didn't even know how to spell psychology when I first realized what I wanted to do. So I think I was about 9 or 10, and we were going through the war at the time back in former Yugoslavia. Then we got a refugee, visa for Australia, and we all moved here. I was 13.
Mm-hmm.
And I always knew I wanted to do it. And I went to high school, and after high school I decided that's it, that's what I want to do. I want to work with kids.
You're one of the lucky ones.
Yes, I'm one of the lucky ones. Yeah.
Who knew what they wanted to do when since a very early age?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's got to do with, I guess, what are you curious about? Like, what is it that you are curious about? And psychology is such a broad area that I just thought, this is really interesting to me. It doesn't even feel like work. It doesn't even feel like studying.
Is that something that you can encourage in children as well?
Absolutely. So, again, if I see a kid that's really interested in Lego, for example, that to me indicates that, the spatial awareness and, memory in terms of looking at this aspect of the picture and putting it into, a live model, what kind of profession is linked to that, architecture.
Yep.
Building anything. So children's interests are really important in what they pick for themselves down the track.
Yep. Jelena, I'm going to ask you a question that I ask every guest that comes to our show. What is the fuck it moment in your life that propelled you personally and professionally?
Oh my God. I think, I think becoming a parent is definitely a fuck it moment, because I think I had a lot more empathy for kids.
Okay.
Prior to that. And then it kind of shifted towards parents.
Wait. So you had a lot more empathy for kids prior to being a parent?
Prior to being a parent.
Okay.
I was a fantastic parent before I became one. And then you have kids and you're like, holy moly. You kind of reflect back and you're almost embarrassed at the expectations you put on other parents before you became a parent, and you're like, what were you thinking?
Yep.
But again, it's that sort of balance between, I need to be able to understand where parents are coming from. If they don't feel validated, they're not going to take on board what I'm saying. It's the same. Human nature is the same. Children are the same. If children don't feel like you understand them, they're less likely to listen to you because they don't feel heard.
But how do we keep a balance so they don't keep seeking validation?
So again, it's the sort of predictability is the main thing. So kids know what to expect from your reaction. Predictability is a very important factor. So, be quite consistent in your expectations, in your responses, in the way you are with them, your warmth, for example. So, it's
another question that I have that I am sure a lot of mums have as well. Is why are children 8 times more difficult with mums versus when they're with dads?
So primarily is because kids often feel that they can be as ugly as they want with someone who knows them well and who's going to love them regardless. Dad is similar, but dads often have a lower tolerance for difficult behaviors, and they give in, which is not the best thing. It doesn't really sit well with mums. They just have that lower tolerance in terms of dealing with difficult emotions. When I say difficult in question marks, we all have emotions. None of them, they're difficult for us to handle, but they're not. They're quite normal emotions. Yeah.
Jelena, what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
I don't know if it's advice or I don't even know where I got this from. Maybe back at uni, maybe online. I can't even remember. It was firm but kind. Firm but kind.
Firm but kind.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate?
Yeah. So firmness in expectations and boundaries, but kindly remind them of those expectations and boundaries.
I reckon that's applicable to a lot of aspects in our life, not just in children.
Absolutely. So nobody likes a boss who tells them off, just like that. They like a boss who reminds them where the boundaries are in a human, considerate way.
Yeah.
Hey, we don't come here late. Do you mind putting in a bit more effort, please?
Because in the end of the day, we're all children.
Yeah. Maturity-wise, we are.
Jelena, thank you very much.
Not a problem.
That's been very insightful, and I would love to have
pleasure.
you back again for another session.
Love to
Thank
come
you.
back. Thank you so much, Dave. Thank you.